Hey guys, today we're going to show you how to replace the steering servo. In front of you, you see an Nitrorcx drift star. Replacing the steering servo is very easy. It's a very simple procedure. 4 screws takes out the steering servo, and we're just going to make sure we plug it into the right channel, plug it in the right way, and make sure the steering servo is centered when you install it. So let's get started. Alright guys, so you're looking at the car from the passenger side. There's the servo horn. Those are the 4 screws attaching the servo to the car, and 1 screw attaching the servo horn onto the servo. First thing I like to do is remove the screw for the servo horn. So let's go ahead and do that. Right. Gently lift the servo horn out of the way. Careful not to strip the gears while you do that. Move that to the side. Now we're going to get the 4 screws holding on the servo. Now your servo is free from the car. Okay guys, now that the servo is unscrewed from the chassis, we're going to unplug it from the receiver. At this point you want to note that the black wire is facing towards the outside of the receiver box. You want to make sure you plug it in the same way, or else it can short or fry your servo. So let's go ahead and unplug it. Just like that, it slides out easily. Also want to note that it's plugged into channel 1. If you have a 2.4 gigahertz receiver, it's also plugged into channel 1, and the black wire also faces towards the outside of the box. So let's go ahead and lift the servo out of the chassis. Alright guys, so here we have a new steering servo. This is a replacement steering servo from Nitrorcx. There are plenty of different servos out there ranging in torque and speed. This would be your standard servo. Some of them even have metal gears for better durability. Now, how to tell if your steering servo is bad? Usually you'll hear grinding sounds when you're turning or when you're steering. Also, if your wheels seem to not return back to center, that can also indicate that your servo is bad. So we're going to go ahead and install this new servo. Basically, you want to just drop it in there and screw it in. I like to do a little cross formation to get it nice and centered. Alright, now that you have the servo screwed in, you want to make sure you plug that servo into channel 2, or channel 1, I'm sorry, with the black wire facing out. Okay guys, once you have your steering servo installed and plugged in correctly, we're going to test it and make sure everything is nice and centered. So the first thing we're going to do is plug the battery into the vehicle. We're going to turn on the transmitter, and we're going to make sure the steering servo or the steering trim is centered. Alright, once you have the steering trim centered, it's electronically centered. That way you get full range of travel. Once you have the steering servo electronically centered by use of the steering trim, you can install your servo horn. Now before you do that, you want to make sure your front 2 wheels are as straight as possible. Once you have the front 2 wheels nice and straight, you're going to grab your servo horn and install it. It should be a nice 90-degree bend. Once you have it on there, notice how it's nice and perpendicular. You can test it, make sure you got full range of travel for left and right, and that it returns back to center. Once you have that all properly set, you're going to tighten down the servo horn. I like to hold the servo horn so it doesn't stress out the servo motor while I'm screwing in the screw for the servo. Now that it's all set, turn it off and organize your wires. Alright guys, so it's all done. Stay tuned for more instructional videos from Nitrorcx.